Guys, it's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. We made it again to OJ. Video number 460. This video is an hour and 56 minutes long, and we just started it. But we are playing it at a faster speed, so it's not really an hour and 56 minutes long. The next video is an hour and 57 minutes long. So we will not get through 2 videos today, but we will get through this one and part of the next one. And it looks, I don't know, it looks like they're getting through witnesses faster. It's hard to tell all the time. So hopefully today there's no boards and no sidebars, and maybe, hopefully, there's a couple sanctions.
On the record in the Simpson matter, Mr. Simpson is present before the court with his counsel, Mr. Cochran, Mr. Scheck, Mr. Blazer, people represented by Ms. Clark, Mr. Goldberg, and Mr. Kelberg. Morning, counsel.
Good morning, Your Honor.
We're ready to proceed with Mr. Bodziak?
I'm sure that we are, Your Honor. Could Mr. Blazer and I speak to the court very briefly on a scheduling matter without the reporter at sidebar?
Sure.
We need all the exhibits that we had here last Friday. I don't know if they've been brought up. The various boards.
They're on their way.
Oh,
Well,
Jack.
when they come up, we'll be ready.
All right, Mrs. Robertson, what's the status of the exhibits? All right, counsel, anything else we can resolve before we have get started with Mr. Bodziak again?
There's a couple things, Your Honor, tonight. In the interest of moving the case along, once the prosecution is finished, I would like to ask the assistance of the prosecution and the court in making the following witnesses available for us. We need Detective Van Adder. We need FBI Agent Martz. We need both Fiata brothers, FBI Agent Michael Wax, W-A-C-H-S, I guess, Deputy District Attorney Dale Davidson, and we need Mr. Gary Sims back. The court will recall that we said we were going to call Gary Sims very briefly on a matter we put sidebar on, if you recall. Those are witnesses that we need to have available that I think they have some control over, and we can move quickly to begin the balance of our case and then our rebuttal.
All right, Ms. Clark.
I'm puzzled about Gary Sims, Your Honor. Perhaps that was a sidebar I was not present for. But with respect to Agent Martz, let me indicate this. The witness is Mr. Whitehurst. Agent Martz is irrelevant until the court rules on the admissibility of Agent Whitehurst. And so I think we need to have that motion first. And then, depending on the court's ruling, we will discuss the availability of Agent Martz. At this time, there is no reason to do so at all. If the court will recall, the defense rested conditionally subject to the admissibility of Agent Whitehurst. And Agent Martz has no relevant testimony to give unless and until the court rules on the admissibility of Agent Whitehurst's testimony.
Unfortunately, Ms. Clark, after she promised to be here Saturday, was not here. And we have now talked to Agent Whitehurst, and we have further questions based upon newly discovered evidence of Agent Martz. They can't tell us which witnesses we want to call. We want Agent Martz. We want Detective Van Adder. It's all newly discovered evidence. We want the Fiata brothers. We want Dale Davidson. And with regard to Gary Sims, the court will recall, Mr. Barry Scheck asked the court to allow regarding
I recollect that
so,
Mr. Sims was released
right,
subject
so that was
to
it. So we, as the court has all said so many times, we have a right to present our case, and we have an absolute right to do that. We have not arrested, and this is newly discovered evidence, and we want to have him out here. Now, if he's our witness, we don't mind paying for him, but we just want to have it facilitated so we don't have any downtime with regard to getting this witness out here.
Your Honor, if I could respond, because I was here both Saturday and Sunday. Mr. Cochran was not here Sunday. Both days were used to interview Dr. Whitehurst. And our position is quite simply, Dr. Whitehurst has a perspective about Agent Martz. And the question is anything that Dr. Whitehurst has to offer relevant to these proceedings?
Well, I assume we're going to take up that issue after we have concluded with Mr. Boziak. I take it this is the prosecution's last witness. All right, then the
So the question is,
defense then has the opportunity to conclude their case, which I assume they're going to do.
but our position with March is not to have this man have to fly out here, just so we can have a motion that his testimony be excluded until the court rules on Whitehurst testimony. Because if, as we submit...
Let's assume for the sake of the argument, Mr. Kelberg, that there is a possibility that March could be recalled for matters regarding the EDTA testing that have nothing to do with Whitehurst. I mean, that's a possibility as well, don't you agree?
Except not for the defense's case, because as I recall the court's statements, the court indicated it was allowing the defense not to rest its case in chief due to this limited area, and that the court would limit it to this area, as a result of which the court said to the prosecution, start your rebuttal. If this is a matter of EDTA, and we have not on rebuttal, our rebuttal, offered anything on EDTA, then their case in chief is...
That's another legal issue.
All right, but the long and short is just the geographics involved. Does Agent Martz have to fly out here to sit until this court rules on Mr. Whitehurst? If we know when, it should be Dr. Whitehurst, if we know when the court anticipates ruling on Dr. Whitehurst, then we can have arrangements available so that Mr. Martz can do his work back at Washington.
Well, counsel, my understanding is that the court reporters will have the transcripts of both Saturday and Sunday's interviews available sometime, I hope, by the end of today. Ms. Moxham is indicating that's correct.
Your Honor, may I just indicate as follows?
So that indicates to me that we will probably, if counsel have the transcripts by the close of business today, that they'll be able to proceed with an offer of proof and argument regarding Dr. Whitehurst probably tomorrow, and we can resolve some of these issues.
Might I just indicate, the reason I brought this up, Your Honor, is the court is aware, those of us who've been here every day in this trial are very much aware of this jury, that we want to get the case to the jury. And I'm trying
Counsel,
to
you don't need to tell me that.
Okay, I'm just pointing this out, Your Honor, because of the fact that we have people who don't always appear here. And I'm trying to point out to you, I want Martz here. They can't tell us how to try our case. We want Martz here, and we think we can recall Martz before we ever get to the Whitehurst issue. And so I want to make sure you listen to them, that that's our issue, that we believe Martz should be called first.
As soon as we finish with Boziak, I suspect the people will get up and say, subject to court's permission to reopen if anything else comes up, they rest their rebuttal case. Then focus turns on the defense.
Fine, I was giving you a heads up. That was all it was.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I be excused?
Don't go too far away, because I don't know how long we're going to have with Mr. Boziak.
I'll be upstairs. I could be reaching Mr. Heisman's office.
All right. All right, Mr. Scheck, why don't you and Miss Clark check with Mrs. Robertson then, make sure all the exhibits are here ready to go, and as soon as they are, we'll get started. All right.
Yay, Martha subscribed with Prime.
ready?
That means it's free. You subscribe for free on Twitch, no ads. And there was this great big thing that went across the screen. That was pretty cool. Thank you, Martha.
All right, Deputy Trier, let's have the jury, please. Jury panel, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Mr. Boziak, would you resume the witness stand, please? All right, let the record reflect that Mr. William Boziak is again on the witness stand undergoing cross-examination by Mr. Scheck. Good morning again, Mr. Boziak.
Good morning.
Mr. Boziak, sir, you were reminded that you were still under oath, and Mr. Scheck, you may continue with your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Good morning, Agent Boziak.
How are you today, sir? Fine.
Agent Boziak, I think you indicated to us on Friday that your knowledge of the extent to which Dr. Lee actually goes to crime scenes and inspects imprint evidence, shoe print evidence, is somewhat limited.
Yes, I stated what knowledge I had about Dr. Lee on Friday.
Are you aware that this Saturday, Dr. Lee investigated a crime scene involving imprint evidence in Kennebunkport, Maine?
Sustained. Sustained. It's irrelevant.
At the request of the FBI?
It's irrelevant.
Now, we left off discussing reasons, I believe, on Friday, that the imprints on the envelope and the piece of paper, in your opinion, could not possibly have come from a shoe.
That's correct.
And I believe we discussed on Friday your views that the non-printing area around the imprints and the lack of a border were factors you considered in reaching your conclusion that it could not have possibly come from a shoe.
That's a part of the factors, yes.
Yes. And I believe you told us that although you recalled seeing 95% of Dr. Lee's testimony, you did not see his testimony about the blood patterns on the envelope and the basis for his belief that the parallel line imprints were made first and other bloodstains were deposited later.
I didn't see that, nor do I believe it has anything to do with whether or not that is a shoe print.
I understand. Now, have you, since we last discussed this on Friday, made any effort to read or review that testimony of Dr. Lee?
No, I haven't.
We also had a discussion at the end of the day on Friday about whether Agent Diedrich believed that the paper and the envelope were probably laying down when something landed on it and made those imprints on it. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
All right. Now, and at that time that we were discussing it, neither of us had Agent Diedrich's testimony right at hand.
Well, I know what Agent Dietrich's conclusion was and what his statement was. What I believe the significant statement in his testimony was that there had to be pressure.
Well, my only question to you, sir, is neither of us had that precise testimony at hand.
No, no.
Okay. Now, I'd like to read you something and ask from Agent Diedrich's testimony on this
Sure.
issue and ask if you agree with it. All right? Sure. It's from the real time, so. And do you want to look along?
Thank you, Zach. Thank you. Thank you. Plus, it happened again. Right across the street it went. It's over now. There's something else there. Don't know what it is. Thanks, guys. I hope you can enjoy with no ads.
This is to Mr. Diedrich. And on Mr. Goldman's jeans, you saw areas where it was saturated. Answer, it appeared to be. Now, question. Now, another scientific fact, or would you agree that another scientific fact about these imprints is that they were in blood, but also that the imprint on the envelope, the piece of paper, and the jeans actually are static? That is, they show evidence of little movement. Answer, well, it's difficult to say with the jeans because I think I have already testified that it might be a swiping or moving type motion that may have caused that. But the papers is probably static. I think the papers were sitting and then something landed on it. Recall that?
Yes.
Question. So you would agree that in terms of the observation also, that we could agree it's a scientific fact that the bloody imprints were made and impressed with relatively little movement? Answer, yeah, that's reasonable. I don't really know the dynamics, nor could I say with 100% certainty what the dynamics of this were of this, but it was probably laying down and something landed on that one area. Do you recall him saying that?
Yes.
Question. And you would think that would be the most reasonable interpretation of how the imprint got on the paper and how it got on the envelope? Answer, yeah, that's more logical than having the paper float down and land on something, and I think it's more reasonable. Do you recall Agent Diedrich saying that?
Yes.
All right. Now, do you disagree with that?
No, I totally agree. May I
Okay.
explain?
All right.
No, he said I totally agree. Next question.
All right. And then there was further discussion, just to read it all. Question. But it would be fair to rule out in terms of your interpretation that the imprint, for example, on the envelope of the piece of paper could have come about with the envelope or piece of paper hitting the jeans and then falling to the ground. Answer, I don't know. I think I said that it seems reasonable that the papers were laying flat and then contact occurred causing the imprint pattern. That seems to me logical. Excuse me. But there has to be some force, some resistance to that contact, so the paper, if it were not on the ground, would have had to have been against something so that the imprint occurred. It wouldn't be floating. It would either have to be either held or on something else. Question. When you and I were talking before, we were operating on your premise that this could have come from Mr. Goldman's jeans, these two imprints. That, didn't you indicate, or aren't you saying, that you felt it unlikely that either the piece of paper or the envelope could have gotten these imprints if they had just touched the jeans? Answer, yeah, I think I've already testified to that too. Yes. Fair
Yes.
enough?
Yes.
Okay. Now, without repeating the entire discussion, can we agree that on direct examination you told us that you did not believe these parallel line imprints on the envelope and paper were typical of the parallel line imprints one expects to see from shoes?
That's correct.
However, it would be fair to say that there are many parallel line imprints in shoe patterns.
Yes, there are.
And you have a computerized database of shoe patterns at the FBI.
Yes, I do.
And that was the computerized database that you consulted when you were looking for the Bruno Maglis.
That's correct.
And I guess as of Friday, you had not reviewed that database looking for the parallel line imprint.
Shaq, you have got to be quiet. Beck is trying to sleep. How dare you? Beck, I will go back in time and fight him for you. In a heartbeat. In a second. I will go fight him. He needs to be quiet. Good night, Beck.
On this envelope, yes or no?
No, I would not.
And over the weekend, you have not done that either, have you?
No, I would not.
Now, there were test imprints of the jeans that were created in this case.
It's my understanding that Doug Diedrich prepared some when he was out here, and I know there were some prepared prior to his coming, yes.
Right, and one set were done on August 21st at the LAPD lab by LAPD personnel, and some were prepared on August 31st.
I don't know the exact dates, but it was in August, yes.
Right, 2 on August 21st and 5 on August 31st.
Okay.
And, Your Honor, we don't have the, upstairs they have the full set of imprints, but what I have here are Xeroxes of the actual imprints in 2 pieces of paper. They appeared in 1 piece of paper. So, for the sake of expediting things, could we mark these 2 documents, defendants next in order, and then we'll later substitute it with the full imprint pad, if that's okay?
1376. And this is going to be test impression from the jeans.
Test impressions from the jeans.
Do you know what date that was taken?
I'm
Is
sorry?
Is this the LAPD or the FBI?
These are the ones that were done by the LAPD and sent to the FBI that form the basis for the boards.
All right, these are the 821 impressions.
They're 831 and
821 or 831?
they're all dated on the paper.
821 or 831?
There's one on 830, there's one on 831, another on 830, another on 830, another on 830, and another on 830 in the 2 pages I have.
All right, multiple dates. All right, thank you.
But they're each labeled. Have you seen these test impressions before?
These are of the jeans, yes. They have actually my initials on them because they passed through me. Yes.
Okay. Now, Your Honor, may I put these on the envelope?
Yes.
Now, Agent Bodziak, the manner in which these test impressions are created is that the jeans are laid flat on the surface.
I wasn't present when these were prepared.
Have you seen subsequently pictures of how they were done?
No, I have not.
Well, let him show you what he's going to show you first.
Oh, I gave you Let me just establish this while Ms. Clark is looking at the various pictures. Are you aware that pictures were taken of the process by which these test impressions were made at the LAPD laboratory?
Objection, that's misleading.
Only now that you've just told me, no.
Okay. And would it be,
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
did you have any, withdrawn. Would it have been was it your recommendation that the manner in which these test impressions be made, that the genes are laid flat, and then this yellow pad, this pomfret chemical pad is placed on the genes, and rolled, and then subsequently a white piece of paper is put on the genes, and then these impressions are made by the interaction of the chemicals from the yellow pad onto the white piece of paper? Is that how it works?
I wasn't present when they were made. I didn't direct the obtaining of these impressions.
Well, you sent the identicator kit to the LAPD.
Yes, I did.
And you have testified that you've used this yourself for purposes of taking impressions of soles of shoes and I think socks, whereby people step on them.
Right, that's correct.
Now, is the method that when you sent this identicator kit to the LAPD, did you direct them that the method of creating the test impression would be to lay the genes flat and then place the yellow palm print pad on it and roll it and then place the papers on it?
I've never used a roller, so I know I would not have recommended that. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but with shoes and socks, it's easy to wear them and step on the object.
Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you have recommended the roller in this case?
Well, it's not that it wouldn't in the case of a fabric. I don't conduct fabric examinations, so I don't get into that kind of a problem. But there would be nothing wrong with using a roller. You're getting a representative sample of the genes. But I'm more used to taking the object and pressing it on the pad and then onto the paper because I deal with shoes and socks.
Mm-hmm. You ready?
Well, are you going to use any of these at this point, Mr. Scheck?
Well, I'm going to show him these pictures.
All right, sidebar with court order, please. All right, thank you, counsel. Proceed.
Now, I'd like these next two documents to be marked defendants 1337. It's two LAPD reports.
1377.
Objection, no
1377.
There's no foundation for this crime. As is.
Just showing it to the witness, Your Honor.
Proceed. It's marked 1377.
1377. Thank you.
1377.
Agent Boziak, I show you two documents marked 1377. Now, in your work as an expert witness, is it your practice generally to rely upon descriptions of procedures used by other laboratory personnel in preparing items that you will inspect for purposes of making comparisons?
Objection, irrelevant.
Overruled.
What's the purpose of showing the documents?
Overruled.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Sure. In the course of rendering an expert opinion on the basis of making comparisons of imprints, is it your general practice to rely upon the documents and laboratory procedures of other police personnel or scientific personnel who you direct to do certain work?
With regard to impressions? You mean if they take impressions and then send them to us to make an examination?
Yes.
In some cases.
And when you receive both impressions and police reports or scientific memorandum indicating how they were prepared, it's your general practice to rely upon the scientific personnel's records of how they were prepared.
You certainly would read that and take it into consideration, yes.
All right. And in this instance, the two documents I showed you, do they reflect the reports of the LAPD personnel with respect to how they created the test impressions for the genes?
Here's some speculation, no foundation.
I'd have to finish reading them.
Please take your time and examine them.
Okay, I've read them.
And based on these documents, as a basis for your expert opinion, would you rely on the fact that...
Counsel, we're missing a few things, aren't we?
Missing these things at this point? Would you regard these reports as reports that would ordinarily be relied upon by an expert such as yourself as a basis for rendering an expert opinion?
Objection, that calls for speculation. There's no foundation. People would ask to take witness on what Dyer considered.
In most cases, if we were to send test impressions, and I can only speak for shoes because I don't do fabric exams, which is what you're asking about, but with regard to shoes, we are many times sent test impressions of shoes, and we may be able to do a comparison, like an elimination type comparison with those. If it was the same design of the shoe impressions in question, of course, we would expect that they would send in the shoes, and we would not do any exam at that point, except a preliminary exam, perhaps on class characteristics. And I think that's what's done in this case. I've never seen anyone so thorough as to write a report attached with those impressions as to how they were taken. So I can't reference any other instance.
Well, you saw the boards created with respect to the test impressions of Mr. Goldman's jeans.
Yes.
And you looked at those and compared them with the imprints on the envelope and the piece of paper.
You're referring to the boards, meaning the exhibits?
Well, the exhibits that Agent Diedrich prepared, the actual envelope yourself, you yourself made a visual comparison between the test impressions created by the LAPD that were used for the boards and the actual imprints on the envelope.
No. The sequence of events is this. I had the envelope with the impression on it. I had a picture of the triangular piece of paper with an impression on it. I had the jeans which were photographed, which I had previously examined for footwear impressions, and determined that there were only two possible ones, and none of those are the parallel lines you're referring to. In looking at the characteristics of the small little fingerprint size or smaller fingerprint size parallel lines on the envelope and the piece of triangular paper, I referred that to Mr. Diedrich because I believed they might be fabric impressions.
Your Honor, I don't think this is responsive. The question I'm asking you, sir, simply is,
Counsel, it was a responsive answer.
I'm asking him if he saw the test impressions. He's telling me everything before that.
He's explaining it. Ask your next question.
Mr. Bodziak,
Ask your next question.
Mr. Bodziak, simply asking you, sir, did you visually examine the test impressions created by the LAPD and used by Mr. Diedrich for his boards to the parallel line imprints on the envelope and the piece of paper? Did you do that?
I did not conduct an examination. They passed through my hands, but I did not conduct an examination.
So you're telling us that you never looked at them?
I looked at them, but it was a fabric examination. Mr. Diedrich does that. I don't.
Well, in the course of your testimony on Friday, did you not express a view that you thought that the imprints on the envelope and the piece of paper were likely to have come from Mr. Goldman's jeans?
I expressed that as a possibility through common sense and what I have seen in the case, yes.
But you're telling us that you expressed that opinion without yourself actually having compared the test impression, looked at them, the test impressions that were created, and then looked at the parallel line imprints on the envelope and the paper?
I'm not an expert in the area of fabric comparisons, and I did not conduct a final comparison, but I did see certain characteristics both in the photograph of the jeans themselves, and in those items which passed through my hands, and referred them to Agent Diedrich.
So the answer is yes, you looked at the test impression and compared them to the imprints?
Yes.
Okay.
Not in an examination way, but just a visual.
And was
I saw them.
And was
Yeah.
that visual comparison, sir, part of the basis for the expert opinion that you rendered on Friday?
It's part of many things I saw in this case, which was, of course, the foundation for which I stated my opinion on Friday.
But that was part of your expert opinion?
That's correct.
And in rendering that expert opinion, would you not rely upon the documents created by the Los Angeles Police Department as documents that would be reliable and something that an expert such as yourself would rely upon informing...
You've asked this question already.
Well, all right. Then let me proceed directly. Would you accept the representation in the
Excuse me,
LAPD...
Wait. Have you seen these reports before?
No, Your Honor.
End of inquiry.
Well,
It's not the basis of his opinion if he hasn't seen it before.
let me ask you this then. Ask you to assume that the test impressions were created by laying the jeans out flat, putting the yellow pad upon it, and rolling the yellow pad with a roller, putting a roller over the yellow pad, and then placing a piece of paper on top of it.
Overruled.
Are you with me?
I understand, yes.
Now, if that were to occur, would you not expect that the ridges creating the imprint, all right, on the paper, the ridges from the jeans, would be stretched out because the jeans were flat and there was a rolling of them.
Objection, Your Honor, this is beyond the scope of expertise.
Want to take it on, voir dire?
Yes, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Excuse me.
Oh, Your Honor.
This is a shoe print expert, not a fabric expert.
He rendered an opinion based on the visual
He
comparison.
said he looked at it and passed it on.
All right, maybe I can shortcut this. Are you telling us that because you're a shoe print expert, not a fabric expert, you would not be able to and express an opinion about whether or not rolling the palm print pad on the jeans would tend to expand the distance between the ridges on the jeans, tend to spread them out?
I don't make test impressions of fabrics except socks, which would be worn with some kind of protection in between. So I couldn't answer that question based on my expertise and experience.
Now, Agent Bodziak, did you ever measure the distance between the ridges on the envelope and compare the distance between the ridges on the envelope to the distance between the ridges on the jeans in the test impressions?
Not with a measuring device, just with a side-by-side look at them in a preliminary sense prior to referring it to Agent Diedrich.
To your knowledge, has Agent Diedrich ever made those measurements?
I have no knowledge of the examination Agent Diedrich performed.
When you do shoe print comparisons, do you perform measurements on the distance between imprints that you see?
No, there's two things we do. We use a divider, which you would apply the points of the divider to one measurement, transfer that divider, which remains at a fixed point, to the other. But more commonly, we use an overlay technique where we would make a test impression of the shoe with a clear material and superimpose that over the questioned impression. That reduces any possibility of error in measurement. It's a more direct comparison.
Well, the first method that you described is you would take some kind of, what are those devices called, calipers or
No,
something?
well, a caliper is a divider with a measurement scale on it. You only
Right.
need the divider.
Right.
You don't actually need a caliper.
So a caliper would be one of these devices where you would, it has 2 points on it, and you stick it between two things, and there's a little a device that shows you how far the distance is between the 2 points.
Not the ones I use. It just holds that position. You can lock it into that measurement.
There are some that have that measurement on it.
Yes.
And then there are the ones you use don't have a measurement on it, but you basically take the distance on one shoe imprint, and then using the same measure, you go over and look at the other one.
That's correct.
And that's a form, would you not agree, of measurement, even though you don't write down a precise number?
I believe it's more accurate than measurement, yes.
More accurate than
Yes.
Okay. And so that and the use of overlays to try to show that the imprints are reasonably similar are techniques you use to demonstrate that one shoe imprint corresponds to the other.
And the comparison would be if they're similar or different. You can use that technique, yes.
Now, would you not agree, and can we put this up again? And with respect to the test imprint here,
1376.
1376, one sees at different points that the so-called inkless fingerprinting chemical, right, when pressed on to the jeans, there was ink, so to speak, that would go between the ridges of the jeans and show up on the imprint.
Objection, beyond the scope, speculation.
You're referring to the filling in between parallel lines and some...
Yes.
Yes, I can see that.
Okay. And would you not agree that the media used to do this test impression is not as thick as blood?
That's correct.
And would you agree from your examination of Mr. Goldman's jeans that many areas of his jeans were saturated with blood?
That's correct.
And I take it that you have never conducted experiments of imprints of fabric in blood.
As I previously stated, I'm not a fabric examiner.
Now, you said on direct examination that imprints made in big globs of blood get darker with time, but most tracks that are blood imprints that are light get lighter with time. Do you recall that testimony?
I don't think it was stated exactly that way.
Well, let me read you this and see if it refreshes your recollection. So most of the tracks are very, very light. The only exception would be if you actually stepped in a pool of blood. With regard to those shoe prints, which I encounter daily and have for my entire time in the FBI laboratory, they become lighter with time. With regard to whole blood or big glops of blood that are very thick, they tend to appear darker with time.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, so you are making a distinction here between imprints made with big globs of blood and imprints in blood that are thinner.
I'm making a distinction between a thick quantity of blood and a very thin, pressed-out quantity of blood, and what the differences are that occur over time.
Okay. And you're saying that the ones that are thinner and pressed out will get lighter over time.
The footwear impressions that I incur daily, the typical scenario of what I get in a case is a crime occurs anywhere from 2 to 3 months away, and I have a case right now from 1980. I will get crime scene pictures taken the day of or the day after the murder showing these footwear impressions. I will also, in many cases, get scatter rugs, cut out pieces of carpeting, tile floors or linoleum floors that are rolled up and sent in with the actual impressions. I receive those and examine those on the average months later. In every instance, the thin shoe prints have all but disappeared. The real thick blooded areas that are now flaking and crusting are darker.
Well, so now you're saying that these are imprints that you're looking at months later.
Me and Kelly are
believe
going
that's
in the
what I
back
said.
alley real quick, guys.
The other day.
All right.
We'll be
Now,
right
I was
back.
looking, this is your book.
Yes, it is.
Impression Evidence. And I was looking over the weekend, and I was trying to find some passage in your book that discussed this phenomenon. Do you discuss this phenomenon anywhere in that book?
I don't know
Not
if
if
there
you're
was an appropriate part
unconscious,
where I actually said that.
then you can't.
I talk about enhancement of blood impressions that are very faint. Obviously,
Kelly,
if they were all
smell
darker
this.
with
Does this
time,
smell like
you wouldn't have to
chloroform?
enhance them. But I don't know if I actually stated what you're asking specifically that way.
So there's, to your best of your knowledge, there's nothing in your book that corresponds with the testimony that you gave the jury on Friday about faint imprints in blood not getting darker but lighter over time.
Objections irrelevant, non-scope.
I don't know if there was a reason why I should state that. I spent a whole chapter talking on enhancement of faint impressions. Wouldn't be a reason to try to give reasons why they may be faint, but just if they are faint.
Well, you have chapters in here about awareness, detection, and treatment of footwear impression evidence.
That's correct.
And you actually have a section in here about impressions in blood.
That's correct.
And you are writing with the purpose of informing crime scene personnel as to what they can expect to encounter when they look at bloody imprints, perhaps from shoes at a crime scene.
I was addressing what they should do to retrieve those impressions and enhance those impressions and to locate those impressions. To be aware that they could be light, they may miss them, and that those light ones have as much value as darker ones.
Well, you do devote considerable time
Kelly,
in this
thank you
book
so much.
to
Thank you.
identifying impressions made in blood.
Positive identification of footwear impressions.
I mean, in other words, when I mean identify, I mean criminalists going to the scene and actually recognizing the impressions.
The first chapter basically is generally on the detection and awareness and potential of footwear impression evidence, the fact that it occurs in many different ways and for many reasons, both in blood and other materials. Then the next 3 chapters go on how to retrieve it photographically through casting and lifting. Then the 5th chapter is on the chemical enhancement, part of which is in blood.
Okay. Well, we'll review that in just a minute, but just on this one point, so we're very clear with the jury. You were saying then on Friday that when you have globs of blood,
Counsel, this will be the 3rd time we're going through this.
well, I just want to make clear.
No.
Let me ask you
That's
this
all right.
question. Isn't blood from an imprint blood?
Could you restate that?
Yeah. When you make an imprint in blood, whether it's a glob or a thin imprint, the imprint is made in blood.
Well, you wouldn't have a... You may have misunderstood what I meant by glob. I'm talking about a body at a scene in which a lot of blood has been spilled. There will be pools of blood, and as they go through the changes before they become hard, they can get it to be rather gelatinous, or, in different consistencies. Particularly if the body is rolled over, the bleeding is under the body. And in fact, when the remainder of the area where the blood is thinner has dried, if the body is rolled over, the areas under will still, in many instances, be tacky, and that pooling of blood, that thick blood, is what I'm talking about with what I meant when I said globs.
That's what you meant by globs. But
Yes.
what I'm directing your attention, sir, is to your assertion that faint imprints made in blood, that get lighter over time. You recall that?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, those faint imprints made in blood are nonetheless blood.
That's correct.
And blood has certain chemical properties.
Yes, it does.
And when protein breaks down in blood and bacterial degradation occurs, blood turns darker.
If it's in a thick quantity, you will see it turn color and darker. If it's thin, as I've stated, it will fade away due to, I guess, ultraviolet radiation and other things. But that's what I've seen in every case for 20 years.
Right. So you're saying that, but that's, you're talking about getting something months later.
The average case is probably 3 to 6 months from the time of the crime.
So 3 to 6 months is what you're
That's a
generally
rough
saying.
average. We don't keep statistics on that. I haven't averaged every case I work, but I'm trying to give you a ballpark figure.
And imprints made on June 13th, or June 12th, I should say, and then looked at 13 days later on June 25th, that's not 2 to 3 months.
No, it's going to get lighter, though. I mean, I've gotten cases the same
But
day
is that-
when I was at the
only
crime
asked
scene.
you
Yes.
whether that was 2
But
to
I
3
want to be
months.
clear.
No, the answer was non-responsive.
That was,
Answer stands.
we agree on the dates, don't we?
Of
Between June 12th and June 25th,
Right. Yes, I do.
13 days.
Right.
Now, is there any serological reason, in terms of the properties of blood that you know of, that would prevent a thin, by your definition, imprint in blood being darker 13 days later than when it was left?
I can only, no, to answer your question, I am not a serologist. I can't give you the chemistry of blood. I can only testify to my experience.
Right. And your experiences, we've now clarified, is with faint impressions that you're seeing 2 or 3 months later.
Seeing them everything from the same day to, like I said, I have a case now from 1980. That's quite a distance. And in every case, they only get lighter with time.
Now, latent imprints are imprints that are not visible to the naked eye.
That's correct.
And shoe imprints made in blood can be latent.
That's correct.
And you agree, do you not, that the location of footwear impression evidence, primarily on ground surfaces, makes it sometimes difficult or inconvenient to find, particularly if the impressions are latent or nearly invisible. Specialized lighting and enhancement techniques are often required, along with an aggressive effort to find the impression.
That's correct.
And do you agree that before beginning the crime scene search, careful thought should be given to what occurred at the crime scene, how footwear impression evidence could contribute to the proof of facts, and what areas of the crime scene might contain footwear impression evidence? Then the footwear impression should be looked for aggressively and carefully. What is not looked for will not be found. You agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I wrote it.
And you agree that lack of success in finding footwear impressions at a crime scene is often due to the investigators not believing that latent footwear impressions will be found and not aggressively looking for them.
As a general statement, yes.
Now, the close-up pictures that you received from the Los Angeles Police Department of the Bundy walkway area, close-ups now, were directed at the clearly visible bloody imprints that you later identified to be from Bruno Magli's shoes.
That's correct.
Now, do you agree that chemicals used for enhancement are very sensitive to small traces of blood?
No, objection, Your Honor. This is the court's ruling on
No, this is enhancement techniques, Your Honor.
objection.
Do you agree?
Yes, I do.
Therefore, in areas where blood impressions are very thin and faint, or where the subject has tracked through blood and left a series of blood impressions, enhancement methods can develop a latent or nearly invisible blood impression into a highly valuable impression. In fact, faint impressions, once enhanced, are normally more valuable.
Sir, shut up. Okay, I should be back before this video flips. I might not be. I don't know. Let's just look. He's still there. He's still there. All right, it doesn't look like you guys are going to hit a sidebar. It looks like clean sailing from here. I'll be back in a few minutes, okay? Behave.
Valuable and detailed than those containing larger quantities of blood.
In some instances, that is true, yes.
Now, have you ever recommended using as an enhancement technique dusting with a Magna brush and fingerprint pattern?
Are we talking about the surfaces in this case or just in general?
In general.
In general, yes.
Do you know who holds the patent on the Magna brush?
It's actually irrelevant.
Sustain.
Have you cited in your book Dr. Lee's work with the TMB enhancement technique as a very sensitive technique that will reveal faint and otherwise invisible traces of blood that works particularly well on light-colored surfaces where bluish-green color will often offer sufficient contrast?
Objection, you say irrelevant, beyond the scope?
I believe that was Nutt, Hazen, and Lee, an article they wrote on that, yes.
And you cited that?
Yes.
Page 158,
Yes.
59,
Yes.
159 in your book. Now, to your knowledge, did the LAPD make an effort to do enhancements of impressions following the trail of the Bruno Magli when the clearly visible footprints disappeared?
No, they didn't. Not to my knowledge.
Objection, Your Honor, that's beyond the scope of the
Overruled.
And do you not recommend in your book, or do you not say in your book, that very often the blood impressions containing the best detail are those made after excess blood is off the shoe?
In some instances.
Now, to your knowledge, did the LAPD attempt to use enhancement techniques in other areas of the Bundy walkway looking for footwear impression evidence on June 12th?
As I previously stated in my direct testimony, I'm not aware of any.
Thank you. And just so we're clear about what this would look like, just 1 second, Your Honor. Now I'd like to show the witness you, page 158 and 159 of your book. Do you not show 3 photographs there that demonstrate how enhancement techniques can be used to bring out impressions made in blood that were either latent or nearly invisible and make very clear patterns?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, may I show these on the elm of the jury?
Objection, this is only relevant, Your Honor.
Sustain. Wasn't done. Sustain.
Well,
It's irrelevant.
Your Honor, I think it's...
Sustain.
Did you review Dr. Lee's testimony with respect to whether or not, withdrawn. Do you recall Dr. Lee's testimony that when he went to the Bundy crime scene and was examining for footwear impressions on June 25th, that he had about 20 minutes and he was not allowed to use enhancement techniques?
Objection, that's hearsay, called for speculation.
It's his testimony.
Did you hear the testimony?
I heard it, Your Honor. I just don't remember the exact quote of what he said.
Do you remember that to be the substance of what he said?
I really don't remember exactly what was said about that. I was more looking at the visuals of the footwear impressions.
So that's another part of the 5% of his testimony that you don't recall hearing.
I just can't remember the quote.
I'm asking you about the substance.
Well, if I can't remember the quote, sir,
You
I can't remember the substance.
Okay.
Mr. Scheck? 10:30.
Now, I'd like to use a...
Mr. Harris? And Mr. Scheck, which exhibit is this?
I'm sorry? Oh, yes.
Mr. Harris, which exhibit
I
is
think
this?
this must be 1337, if I recall. Is that right, Mr. Harris?
All right, 1337.
Now, I've taken out the board 1337 entitled Imprint Evidence at Bundy. You see that, sir?
Yes.
Now, I believe you testified on Friday, or Thursday, I can't recall which, that you were confused in watching Dr. Lee's testimony, and you were sure other people were confused whether he was referring to shoe prints when he used the term imprint on many occasions.
That's correct.
and you indicated that you were here to clarify Dr. Lee's testimony so it's not misleading.
Well, I think that the effect of my testimony is to do that to some extent, yes.
Now, do you remember Dr. Lee's testimony on direct examination with respect to the photograph at the far left-hand bottom corner of 1337 that was taken on June 13th by the Los Angeles Police Department?
Yes, I do.
Overruled.
If counsel is proposing to read me, I see what he proposed.
Yes.
Yes.
Starting on 42772.
Objection under 356. 352 is misleading. I ask that you read the
Whose testimony is this?
This is Dr. Lee's.
Ask the question.
Now, with respect to that picture, the bottom left-hand corner of 1337,
What's the labeling on the bottom of it?
it's indicating walkway 612-1394. Do you recall seeing, because you saw Dr. Lee's testimony in videotape, correct?
Yes.
Do you recall seeing or hearing Dr. Lee testify on direct examination to the following? And I'm starting, Your Honor, at page 42772 of this transcript. Question. And incidentally, Dr. Lee, with respect to the parallel line imprint pattern that you identified for us on this June 12th, June 13th walkway photograph, in theory, is it possible that the imprint pattern could arise from an imperfection in the tile? Answer, it could be, because I only look at a picture. I myself did not have an opportunity to go there, identify the tile. It could be anything. What I don't want to mislead people, and ladies and gentlemen, say that is a shoe print. By no means, I did not say that is a shoe print, just a partial imprint with some parallel lines.
Question.
Do you recall him saying that?
Yes, I do.
That was on direct examination.
That's correct.
Do you regard that as in any way misleading to this jury?
My statement about misleading was in context to his whole testimony.
Ask him about this.
In this one, I think he clarified it that if he had inferred before by saying it was an imprint, that he meant it was a shoe print. He was saying later on that it wasn't a shoe print with regard to this particular one.
Direct examination, the section I just read you with respect to that picture. To recall that testimony, my question to you very simply is, do you regard that answer on direct examination as an effort to confuse and mislead this jury in any way?
Objection, Your Honor, then 356 and 352 is misleading.
Overruled. Restate the question. The way the question is stated is argumentative.
Okay. With respect to the section I just read you from Dr. Lee's direct examination with respect to that picture, do you believe that in this question and answer, Dr. Lee was misleading or confusing anyone?
Not with regard to that particular statement, no.
Now, do you recall that when this issue then arose on cross-examination, what Dr. Lee said about it?
No, I don't have this committed to memory. I saw most of this, but I don't have his quotes committed to memory, sir.
Well, I'm not asking you about quotes. I'm asking you about substance. Do you recall the substance of what he said on this?
It's my opinion from what I saw that he admitted that these could be trowel marks in the sidewalk or imperfections in the sidewalk. But I don't remember his quote exactly.
All right. Second, I'm sorry, Your Honor. To save some time, do you recall that Mr. Goldberg showed Dr. Lee an enlarged picture of that tile?
Objection, Your Honor. Objection, my statement testimony. Small.
Sustained. Phrase the question.
Do you recall that Mr. Goldberg showed Dr. Lee a picture which Dr. Lee remarked was a better picture than one that had been available to him.
I don't remember that part exactly. But again, maybe because it wasn't part I saw, or I just don't recollect that far back.
And do you recall that when Dr. Lee was shown that photograph, he immediately told Mr. Goldberg, yes, this is a better picture than I had, and looking at that tile, I now agree the most reasonable interpretation is that those parallel line imprints came from the etchings in the tile.
No objection. That states a testimony.
Sustained.
I'll get back to this after the break. Now, with respect to this is 1337B, and that is, you agree, a blow-up of the middle photograph entitled Walkway 62594 on 1337.
Yes.
Now, Dr. Lee identified a parallel line pattern that he entitled PLP,
Yes.
and he indicated that by way of tests and observations that he made on June 15th, that this was an imprint in blood.
I don't believe I recall him calling it conclusively in blood.
But consistent with an imprint in blood based on his tests and observations at the scene.
I don't recall that specific part of it.
Sustained.
Let me ask you this question, very simply, yes or no. Do you agree that this parallel line imprint pattern identified by Dr. Lee is consistent with having come from footwear?
I don't believe, as I previously stated, that you can look at that area and say any of that has positively come from footwear. It could, but it wasn't there on June 13th.
Move to strike the last part of this answer is non-responsive.
Stricken is non-responsive. Last part.
Simple question, yes or no.
You can't tell from that partial of an impression, and I stated that on direct.
But did you not state on direct that, in your opinion, this parallel line imprint pattern could come from footwear?
It could have come from footwear.
And isn't it your understanding that that's what Dr. Lee said as well?
As I recall, he referred to that area as a parallel line imprint, and he was asked many times about it on both sides and said he could have come from a shoe. I don't believe he conclusively said that it came from a shoe.
Right. He said just what you just said.
Right.
Now, with respect to this wiggly line that one sees above the Bruno Magli, see that?
The wavy line.
The wavy line.
Yes.
Well, did not on direct examination, Dr. Lee simply referred to that as wiggly line pattern,
That sounds correct, yes.
and he did not circle that.
Not there, no.
And Mr. Goldberg asked him some extensive questions about that on cross-examination. Do you recall that?
It calls for a conclusion as to what's extensive.
Did he ask Dr. Lee some questions about this wavy line pattern on cross-examination?
I don't remember how many he asked him, but he questioned him about that, yes.
Right. And when he was questioned about it on cross-examination, did Dr. Lee indicate that he had performed tests on the parallel line pattern, but could not recall any tests being performed on the wavy lines?
No objection. That states a testimony.
Overruled.
Well, again, I'm not able to memorize all of that testimony. I saw parts of it. Parts on the East Coast were cut out, and a lot of it I don't recollect because it's been some time. So I'm not going to get into the quote game. I'm sorry. I just can't remember that.
You, on direct examination, indicated that this wiggly line pattern was an imperfection in the sidewalk.
It's a shoe print in concrete.
Shoe
in the
print in
sidewalk,
concrete.
Yes.
All right. And this was passed out to the jury, and this was all pointed out to them, right? It's a
That's-
shoe print in concrete.
That's correct.
And when you did that, or when that was done, were you in any way trying to represent to the jury that Dr. Lee had maintained that this wavy line pattern was an imprint made in blood?
Are you asking me my intent of explaining all of these, or just this one specifically?
When you did that, were you aware that Dr. Lee had never represented to this jury that this wavy line pattern was an imprint made in blood?
I don't recall him saying anything that I saw. I don't recall him saying it was made in blood. No.
And in fact, to the best of your recollection, his testimony was directed just to the parallel line pattern as an imprint made in blood that could be consistent with a shoe, just as he drew it in this picture.
You're asking me about quotes about him talking about things conclusively made in blood. I don't remember that part of it. I remember the parallel lines as possibly being a shoe print. I don't remember the blood portion.
And the parallel lines possibly coming from a shoe print that he drew, Dr. Lee said, with respect to that, exactly what you said here today.
which is it's parallel lines that could have been made by a shoe.
Right.
With the exception that I'm saying,
No, is that
Okay.
is that right?
Objection, Your Honor.
No,
You
no.
can finish the answer, counsel.
Well, if he's going to start saying
You
about
can finish the answer. That's the way you asked the question.
no,
Have you finished your answer?
no, sir.
Finish your answer.
Except that I also determined that that impression was not present on the June 13th photographs, which
Right.
were very detailed photographs.
all right. And Dr. Lee simply said that he observed this on June 25th,
That's correct.
and well, I think that's enough. It's 10:30.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our mid-morning recess at this time. Remember, all my admonitions to you will stand at recess 4:15.
Please clear the court.
Stand, please. All right, Mr. Scheck, you may resume your cross-examination.
And hopefully conclude, Your Honor.
Amen.
Now, Agent Bodziak, the picture to the far right on 1337 and the blow-up, which is marked 1337A, you recall this one.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, Mr. Scheck, can you just give me the labeling on the 1337?
It's called Walkway 62594, but it's the one on the lower right-hand corner, and 1337B is the blow-up that's labeled with the circle PLP-SP, standing for shoe print.
Yes.
Now, you recall Dr. Lee's testimony with respect to this particular imprint pattern.
Yes.
And you recall that he testified that in his opinion, this parallel line imprint pattern was a shoe print.
Yes.
Do you agree that this is a shoe print?
It's more than likely a shoe print. I mean, it looks very much like a shoe print, but it's, again, partial.
Well, in your opinion, then, it's more than likely a shoe print.
Yes, yes.
So you would agree in that respect with Dr. Lee that this is a parallel line imprint that's more than likely a shoe print?
Yes.
Now, is this one of the kinds of imprint patterns that you believe would get lighter over time as opposed to darker?
What is it composed of?
Well, Dr. Lee testified that based on his tests and observations of the
Objection, Your Honor. Objection.
What's the objection?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, if you're going to imply it's not,
Objection.
can we approach sidebar?
Sustained. The objection is sustained. Rephrase the question.
All right. Dr. Lee testified based on the work he did at the crime scene and his observations that he believed that that parallel line imprint was made in blood. Wear that.
Same objection, what you did.
Overruled.
Yes.
Now, if we assume that that is indeed made in blood, would you believe that that imprint pattern is the kind that would get lighter over time, and here I'm talking about a period of 13 days, would it get lighter over 13 days or darker?
If this particular impression was an impression made on June 13th in blood, it would only get lighter.
And do you have any, and it's your testimony that this would get lighter?
Absolutely.
And you're saying that these, assuming that there was an imprint pattern made on June 12th in blood with this configuration,
Yes.
is it your testimony that the lines in blood would not break down in terms of the proteins and the bacterial degradation, and those lines get darker?
Well, the first part I would agree with. They would degrade, as any blood would, when exposed to the weathering and time, particularly over that time period. But based on my experience in casework as well as blood impressions, which I prepare for classes that maybe don't use for 9 months later, purposely to make them light, for chemical enhancement in those classes, they always turn lighter, without
Well-
exception.
You just mentioned 9 months.
They gradually get lighter with time, sir. Doesn't matter what the time frame is. As more time goes by, they will get lighter.
And can you, now we're talking now just 13 days, you realize that?
Yes.
And can you tell us what scientific, chemical, serological properties is the basis for your opinion that an imprint that size made in blood would get lighter within 13 days as opposed to darker?
Sustained. We've already asked this question. Already asked this question.
Well, this is on a different imprint of a different size.
But we asked the same question.
Okay.
We've already been through the lighter and darker.
So your answer would be the same as the one we went through before, that you're not a serologist?
May I answer that?
Yes.
Yes, my answer would be the same. It's from experience.
All right. But you're not a serologist?
No.
To the base, you're aware of the fact that Dr. Lee is regarded as one of the foremost serologists.
Overruled.
Again, I've stated my knowledge of his qualifications. I don't work with Dr. Lee, and I don't have very extensive knowledge of exactly what his strong points are in terms of experience.
Well, you indicated, I think first you said you hadn't read any of his books, and then you indicated
We've
that
gone
you...
through this. We went through this last week.
Well, any of the books that you skimmed of Dr. Lee.
Counsel, move on.
Now, you do not have a close-up direct picture of this tile from June 13th.
Not that part of it, no.
And basically, what you told this jury before is that you were looking at some overall shots, and looking at those overall shots, in your opinion, you could not see this imprint.
The large photographs, which I had labeled, starting with E on one and going through, I think, L, M, and O, which were general scene shots, but you could see the tiles fairly well. I could not see that impression on the 10th row of tiles, which is where that's from.
Now, these...
I'm sorry, counsel. When we say that, we're talking about 1337A, is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
Now, these pictures that were labeled H, that you used on your direct examination, those blown-up pictures of the scene, you recall those?
Yes, the ones you just showed me at break.
Yes. I think that...
All right, Mr. Harris, what exhibit is this?
This is
598.
598. And we were making reference before to the pictures labeled A, B, C, and then we had some labeling problems, J and K. You recall those?
Yes.
All right. Now, those pictures were created by you sometime in August.
These particular prints were created by me in August, yes.
All right. And that was in anticipation of Dr. Lee's testimony.
I was requested to print those, yes, for that reason.
And you have never received contact sheets of the pictures taken from the crime scene from the Los Angeles Police Department.
No.
And are you aware that the defense has repeatedly asked for contact sheets in this case?
Sustained.
Oh,
Sustained.
may I approach?
No. Proceed.
You were sent in August the negatives. Were you not?
Yes, I was.
And you then, from these negatives, were able to prepare enlarged contact sheets.
That's correct.
And from those contact sheets, you could then select out photos and do enlargements.
Well, no, from the original negatives, not
From-
the contact sheets.
The contact sheets directed your attention to the picture. You were then
Right.
able to select it and do
It
enlargements.
saves time, rather than enlarge everything to that size, which would be very costly and time-consuming.
And would you not agree that these pictures that you created in August were of a better quality than the ones that had previously been provided to you by the Los Angeles Police Department?
Which ones are you referring to?
A, B, C, J, K.
Overruled.
I had seen smaller pictures of those. I had not requested larger pictures at that time because my examination was about the close-up photographs. But I did have an opportunity to look at the pictures they had available of those other frames.
And you also prepared a picture from the original negative of the socks that were found in Mr. Simpson's bedroom?
I don't recall enlarging a picture of the socks in his bedroom. No, sir.
To your knowledge, during this period, did someone else do that?
They may have, and I don't recall that.
Now, you went out to the crime scene, and you took, recently, and you took a series of black and white photographs of what you found to be imprints in the concrete of these tiles,
That's correct.
some of which were footwear imprints.
That's correct.
Now, with respect to, we can take that one down for a moment, thank you. And with respect to 1337B, the three parallel line imprints, and 1337A, okay, you have these in mind?
Yes.
You are not telling the jury that any of those imprints in concrete that you took pictures of recently formed these parallel line imprints in 1337A and 1337B?
No, not just the wavy line and the one in your right hand, whichever that is.
Just the wavy line?
Yes.
Okay. So as far as 1337A, those imprints labeled by Dr. Lee PLP, SP, and 1337B, the one labeled PLP, those were not made from the indentations in the concrete?
That's correct.
And from the indentations in the concrete, you were asked, withdrawn, you were asked on direct examination whether or not those indentations you found and photographed in the concrete could have caused the imperfections and the unevenness in color of the various tiles that one sees in the overall pictures that you recently blew up.
That certainly could be a part of it, but by no means is it all of it.
And did you not tell us that the dark splotchy areas that you saw in the overall pictures and various imperfections, that no one could exclude the possibility that there are other footwear impressions there from just looking at the overall shots?
Are we talking about on June 13th in blood?
We're talking about the overall. You recall that there was one point in Dr. Lee's testimony when he saw these new pictures that you created, that he testified that he saw impressions, dark impressions in the tiles that could be imprints.
I recall strongly one area, which I believe at the end of his testimony on recross by Mr. Goldberg, that he just all of a sudden made a general statement pointing to those photographs which were just up here, those enlarged ones that I had made, that there were imprints everywhere.
Well,
I think he might have even called them shoe prints. I don't recall the exact quote, but I know he certainly referred to them as imprints, and the implication were that the walkway, there was many things on the walkway, and he made a very general statement about you could see things everywhere.
well,
So you'd have to get the exact quote out. I can't remember it.
Well,
But I was concerned about that statement.
well, if you're concerned about that statement, would it behoove you to be very specific about it, do you think?
I'm being as specific as I can without being inside of Dr. Lee's mind.
Well, in anywhere did he say that when he looked down that walkway that he could see a shoe print?
There was an open inference. I don't know what he meant.
I only asked, did he say that?
And I'm answering you, I don't know what he meant. He said imprints or shoe prints. There were many of them on that walkway, and he pointed to those photographs in answer to Mr. Goldberg.
So you think that he said that one of the dark splotchy areas was a shoe print?
I don't know what in his mind he was specifically pointing to. He referred to those general photographs.
I'm only asking you about what he said.
Objection is argumentative now.
Sustained.
Now, in your testimony here, did you not state that in the overall shot, looking at the unevenness color and various stains and weathering of the concrete style since the walkway was put there, that you can see various lighter or darker areas of imperfections, and it's impossible to tell what they are?
Yes, I'd be happy to show those if we could put that chart back up.
No, but is that what you said?
Yes, it is.
And did you also say that in a very loose sense, if I were asked, or anyone, including Dr. Lee, to look at this, and you see these various dark splotchy areas and imperfections, that you cannot exclude the possibility that there are other footwear impressions, of course, but you can't say that there are footwear impressions there either?
That's a whole lot different than what he stated in his testimony.
That's what you think?
Can I exclude the possibility
I'm
that...
only asking about what you said.
I'm trying to explain that. I can't...
Is that what you said?
Objection, Your Honor.
Now, the question is that what you said?
Would you read it back again?
Sure. So in a very loose sense, you could look at it if you were asked, if I were asked, or anyone, including Dr. Lee, to look at this and say, do you see these various dark splotchy areas and various imperfections? Can you exclude the possibility that there are other footwear impressions? Of course you couldn't. But these are, from my inspection of the scene in these photographs, there's nothing that you could look at, in my opinion, that looks like a shoe impression other than the ones that I have previously testified to.
In a very loose sense, yes. That's exactly what I said.
Now, I understand it's your position that the parallel line imprints reflected on 1337 and identified by Dr. Lee, in your opinion, based on your previous testimony, you don't believe could have been present on June 12th.
That's correct.
However, based on the previous discussion we had this morning, you would agree that, as far as you know, people from the Los Angeles Police Department did not use enhancement techniques on other areas of that walkway on June 12th.
Objection, asking answers, speculation.
Overruled.
Am I aware if they used enhancement techniques? No.
Okay. Now, with respect, however, to the imprints on the envelope, the piece of paper, and Mr. Goldman's jeans, would you agree, based on the photographic evidence you've seen, that those were present on June 12th and June 13th?
What was present? The parallel?
The parallel line imprints on the envelope, the piece of paper, and the imprints on Mr. Goldman's jeans.
In contrast to the exhibit you just showed me on tile 10?
I'm asking you a very simple question, and perhaps,
Sustained.
let me just ask you this.
It's a compound question.
All right, I'll take it one by one. Would you agree that the parallel line imprint impressions on the envelope from the photographic evidence you've seen were there on June 12th?
Yes.
Would you agree that the parallel line imprint impressions on the piece of paper were there June 12th?
Yes.
Would you agree that the imprints on Mr. Goldman's jeans identified by Dr. Lee were there on June 12th?
12th to 13th, I believe, is the correct date, yes.
As part of the 95% of Dr. Lee's testimony that you recall hearing and seeing, do you recall what he said about the so-called accordion effect that made imprints on Mr. Goldman's jeans?
With regard to...
Sustained.
Well, you recall Dr. Lee's testimony. Maybe we could put up a board. I request that we actually, Mr. Harris, if we could pull that one out and place it in front of the podium. This is 1339, Your Honor, imprint evidence and Bundy, imprint evidence on Goldman's blue jeans. Do you recall Dr. Lee's testimony with respect to this board?
Yes, I do.
Do you recall him testifying with respect to certain imprints on Mr. Goldman's jeans that he detected something that he characterized as an accordion effect?
Same objection, beyond the scope.
Sustained.
Well, did you testify on direct examination with respect to imprints on these jeans?
Objection, has to be on the scope of the record.
Overruled.
Yes, I did.
And would it be important in your evaluation of imprint patterns on the jeans to consider all of Dr. Lee's testimony with respect to how various imprints were formed on the jeans?
Objection, this is beyond the scope.
Overruled.
Goes to agent.
Yes.
And you have no recollection of what Dr. Lee said with respect to an accordion effect?
Not specifically, no. Are you referring to the accordion of a fabric or a shoe? I don't recall, I don't believe what he said.
Does it refresh your recollection that Dr. Lee pointed out certain imprint patterns on the jeans that he characterized as an accordion effect that occurs when the jeans are folded and bunched together?
Objection, irrelevant.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Overruled.
I'm familiar with that phenomenon.
You're familiar with that phenomenon?
Yes.
But you don't recall Dr. Lee's testimony with respect to identifying various imprints on the jeans?
In general, I just can't remember his exact quote.
Okay. Now, we've discussed before, and without going into specifics of it, it's your understanding that, withdrawn. Would you agree that the pictures taken of the blue jeans here are when the blue jeans are flat and they are two-dimensional representations?
Yes.
And would you agree that nobody except perhaps a very peculiar, thin individual would, when wearing jeans, have those jeans flat?
That's correct.
That it's a very important factor in considering how imprints were made on these jeans to recognize that there had to be a leg inside the jeans that would affect imprints made upon it.
That's correct.
And as I recall your direct testimony, you recognized the significance of this when you were talking about your arm and slapping your arm to indicate how imprints might be made on your arm.
I believe I had a heel over my arm, and I was showing how hard it would be because of the cloth conforming to the shoe so readily with hardly any pressure to make an imprint of just the interior of the heel over and over with no perimeter of the shoe showing.
So you would agree that the fact that the jeans are on the leg and the receiving surface is three-dimensional would have an effect on how imprints are made on the jeans by another object that comes into contact with it.
Can have a minor bearing on it, yes.
Minor?
Yes, minor.
Well, if the jeans are folded and bunched and there is contact from a flat surface with ridges and that surface has blood on it, could that not affect folds and the bunches, the kind of imprint one sees on the jean?
Objection, improper, hypothetical, irrelevant.
I can only speak with regard to the shoes, and shoes, if the material is bunched, like you're suggesting, and the shoe comes down on top of it and compresses on it with pressure, leaving a shoe print on it in blood when it's bunched, then when it's flattened out, it will separate, and those lines, there'll be evidence of that, evidence that you can recognize as a person that's experienced that, made test impressions that way, and recognizes what you're looking at.
Well, do you recall Dr. Lee testifying with respect to how these imprints were made on the jeans, that he considered the fact that it was three-dimensional and the jeans would be folded and bunched was a significant factor in evaluating these imprints?
Yes, but I don't understand how he could have known exactly what the scenario was since he wasn't there. You could have that scenario and many others, and you have many areas on the jeans, and they would not be the same.
Do you recall him testifying to any particular scenario as opposed to simply testifying that when a leg is inside the jeans and the jeans become folded and bunched, that's going to affect the way imprints look?
Which type of imprint? Again, are we talking of shoe prints or fabric imprints?
Well, Dr. Lee testified about imprints made in blood, whether from shoes or other objects, didn't he?
There's a distinction between them, though. That's the whole point, is that shoe prints are not like fabric impressions, and the dynamics of what you're hypothesizing here is different for shoes as it is for fabric, because one's a soft material and the other is a very rigid material.
Well, let me ask you this. As I understand the way you have been testifying, you're telling us that you're not an expert in the way imprints are made by fabrics.
That's correct.
You're only an expert, you say, on the way imprints are made by shoes.
That's correct.
Well, in your last answer, you were just telling us about what imprints one could expect from fabrics, as opposed to what imprints could be expected from shoes.
I have made fabric impressions, and it's mostly common sense.
So, in other words, you're saying that you don't need any particular expertise about how imprints are made by fabrics. You can do it from common sense.
What I'm saying is you don't need any particular expertise to know that the scenario you're giving is one of many, many, many that could have occurred, and that you would see evidence of that, and that they would not, you have impressions on many different areas of the jeans which were made at different points. You're suggesting they were all made exactly alike with this compressed fabric. It simply doesn't happen that way, Mr. Scheck.
Did I say that all of them were made exactly alike with some compressed fabric? Now, did I say that?
That was the inference I understood, yes.
I understand that's the inference. I'm only asking you, is that what I said?
Not specifically, no.
And isn't it important, Agent Bodziak, to carefully review what another expert says if you're going to come into court and criticize exactly what that expert says?
Sustained.
Do you think it would help to read a transcript?
Excuse me, counsel. Counsel.
Now, you have stated, and I'd ask you to come down and look with respect to imprint number 2 over here. Do you recall on direct examination that your attention was directed to the area of the parallel line imprint on imprint number 2 on board 1339?
Yes.
And this is, in fact, I think where you had a discussion about your arm.
Yes.
And your direction was drawn to what I'm indicating here within the larger red line, a curved imprint.
That's correct.
Now, you have indicated that you believe that that is consistent, in your opinion, with an elbow from fabric as opposed to a heel from a shoe.
That's not what I said, Mr. Scheck.
Okay.
I had a discussion with Mr. Diedrich, and we suggested could that possibly be an elbow, and that was something for him to pursue, not for me to base on my experience.
Okay. So you're not going to venture an opinion about whether it could come from an elbow.
No, my opinion is that it's not a shoe impression.
Right. And you don't want to say anything about an elbow because you don't feel qualified to state that?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, did you not say that looking within these impressions, and I'm now directing your attention to imprint number 2, the lines that are parallel do not always run parallel to one another?
That's correct.
And could you tell us which ones in particular you're pointing to?
Sure, may I get the pointer here? Many lines in this area, and there's 2 right here, which are a little bit offset of the what appears might be a continuation, but they're actually 2 that go in this direction, and then 2 that are, well, these 2 on this side are about like that, and these are just slightly turned. These down here are angled up a little bit more in contrast to those. Maybe I could get the other pointer. If I put this over one of these lines and this one over this line, you can see that they're not perfectly parallel.
Okay, just hold it right there for a second, if you may. Okay, just so we're very clear on what you're saying, all right, is that you're referring to, within that heel impression, you see 2 parallel lines.
I don't see a heel impression.
Objection.
Right, withdraw. Let me state it differently. Within this curved impression that you would agree is about 3 inches,
So there's no scale on this photograph.
when you did a
It'd
blow-up,
be approximately 3 inches.
approximately 3 inches. In the top pointer, you're indicating that there are 2 parallel lines that are in the direction you've indicated here. Is that right?
Yes.
And now you're pointing to 3 other parallel lines below and to the right at the bottom of the picture, correct?
Well, there's more than 3. It's hard to count because but you can see, again, we're running with the fabric, and you're getting blood on a garment that's kind of on its own, just gathering up within that weave. Now, this is right along the parallel lines of the fabric, and so a lot of these lines, you can't look at them and tell whether they just happen to soak that way or whether they were actually from a contact of something. But there's more than 3 down here if you're going to count everything
Okay.
that looks like a parallel.
There's a series below to the right, and then there's the 2 that you've indicated that are directly touching the curved line.
Well, there's 2 here, which appear to be different from 2 more. This I wouldn't count as really anything because it's all run together. And then there's several down here, which again, they kind of deteriorate into just being blood, which is in the weave of the fabric. So it's very unreliable to say what all of these are.
Well, when you in direct examination said, looking within these impressions, the lines that are parallel do not always run parallel to one another, you were referring to the 2 sets of lines you've just indicated.
Well, I was referring to the most obvious, the ones up here, the 2 and 2, and the ones down here. You've got some that go outside of this perimeter as well.
I'm only asking to the ones you refer to on direct examination.
Yes.
In the part of the testimony I just quoted, those are the ones you just indicated to the jury.
Well, I don't think I pointed everyone out, but all of these lines have inconsistencies in the angulation of them.
And it's your testimony that the bunching or folding of the jeans could not have created the difference in the way those lines are pointed.
I can answer that question, but again, I want to premise it with I'm not a fabric examiner, but I have to.
Objection beyond the scope of expertise.
Well,
It would be more than likely that the inconsistencies of the direction of these lines would be of the inconsistency of Ron Goldman's shirt than it would be of jeans, which would be more like taut over the leg of him, be tighter.
Now, so the answer to my question is no, it couldn't be from the folding of the jeans. That's what you're saying.
I wouldn't begin to tell you exactly what happened at this crime scene. That's part of the whole point, is that you can look at physical evidence, and sometimes you can determine things, and sometimes you're limited. And I don't think that you can say every one of these lines that runs along the weave of the jeans is a parallel line caused in an imprint fashion, but the ones that you can see are not from a shoe.
Have you not seen parallel line imprints on the jeans that are against the grain of the fabric?
Yes.
And do you recall Dr. Lee's testimony that he believed that the parallel line imprints that ran with, some of them that ran with and some of them that ran against the grain, were made by a flat, thin surface coming into contact with the jeans? Do you recall him saying that?
I don't recall him saying precisely that.
Now, you're saying that you don't have expertise in the area of fabric impressions,
In terms of comparison, yes.
but you do concede, I take it, that there are a series of parallel line imprints on the jeans, some of them running with the grain and some of them running against the grain.
Yes, there are.
And if the hypothesis that you just put forward, that these imprints were caused by Mr. Goldman's shirt coming into contact with the jeans, would you not agree that that would require his arm, or the the shirt, coming into contact in a series of imprints with the jeans to cause those lines.
Well, there's a series of
Objection,
different...
this is beyond the scope of his expertise.
Sustain.
Do you believe, Agent Bodziak, you said, I believe, that you do not regard yourself as an expert in bloodstain interpretation.
Objection, asked and answered.
And bloodstain interpretation at crime scenes would include an evaluation of imprints on garments or fabrics such as blue
Objection,
jeans.
speculation, irrelevant.
My interpretation of blood stain analysis is blood pattern or blood spatter. That it would be limited to the passing of the blood through the air and landing on a surface and the physics of what happened to that blood. In other words, you would look at a drop of blood, and if it was totally circular, you could determine it was approximately 90 degrees to the surface, and if it was at an angle, the elliptical nature of it would enable you to measure through the science of physics the approximate angle, and that you could use this in part to reconstruct, but more importantly to corroborate or discorroborate statements that might be made by witnesses. As far as when it gets into shoe impressions or fabric impressions of blood, I don't believe that's within the area of blood spatter analysis.
Well, do you think that it's within the scope of bloodstain interpretation at crime scenes that analysts will investigate how various different kinds of imprints are made by objects on different receiving surfaces?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustain. Let me see counsel without the court reporter, please.
I don't hear anything. The last thing I heard said was, let me see counsel without the court reporter. And I tried to rush up here. Oh, there we go. Now I hear it.
Do you feel qualified to comment on any of that?
No, I don't.
Objection, this is beyond the scope.
Just
Good
finishing
morning.
up and trying to get through this. Now, you heard Dr. Lee's testimony with respect to Ron Goldman's shoes. There was a board that contained Ron Goldman's shoes, keys, a pager, buttons missing, a beeper, and disturbance of soil, all that were directed towards his testimony concerning struggle. Do you recall that?
This objection beyond the scope.
Yes, I do.
Any of that testimony that you feel that you are qualified to comment on?
Objection, irrelevant.
Sustain. I
Well,
want to narrow it down to footprint.
I'm trying to see what he... Did you examine
It
Ron
was
Goldman's shoes?
19 today.
Yes, I did.
Did you see a
But
cut
that's not enough to get my coat
on the toe of one of Ron Goldman's shoes?
My
I
sweater
examined the
is
shoes for
fine.
the sole pattern and the foxing strip
And I had to
around
stop and
the
get
side
gas.
of it, not anything else. So I didn't see any other features on the shoes.
So in other words, you're telling us you did not see that area that Dr. Lee identified as a fresh cut that would have come from a sharp instrument when the shoe was in the air.
Objection, let me state the
Sustain.
Did you see Dr. Lee's testimony with regard to the cut, which he characterized as fresh from a sharp instrument?
On the shoe?
Yeah.
Yes, that's not what I examined.
And you never saw that on the shoe?
I never examined the shoe, that part of the shoe, for that type of evidence.
To your knowledge, did anyone?
I would have no idea.
Kelly, it was
Who examined the shoe
19
besides
degrees
myself and for what
outside.
reasons?
Now,
I wore a
In this part of
sweater.
Dr. Lee's testimony, there was reference to soil being disturbed in the closed-in area. You recall that?
Again, my interest in his testimony was concentrated on the
You gotta
shoes. I
prove
saw a
it.
little bit of the others. I don't remember that discussion.
Well, would not impressions made in soil be relevant in terms of your expertise with respect to footwear?
If he stated shoe impressions, that's a lot different than disturbance of soil.
Leave Josh alone. He's in pain.
Do you know what he said?
To my knowledge, he did not testify to anything about shoe impressions in soil.
Can shoe impressions be taken from soil?
Shut up, Shaq.
You mean, can they be made in soil?
Yeah.
If the soil conditions are right, yes.
I think Josh has to be here
Now-
for it to count, Kelly.
Do you recall Dr. Lee's testimony
Or
about
he
the
can just
envelope
go
in different
Do
positions?
all my live streams and just send me texts every
I think
day.
that's what we discussed the other day, yes.
All right, you saw that.
Part of it, yes.
Did you see his testimony about the, with respect to the envelope again, about the missing lens from the glass and blood material on the eyeglass frame?
Objection, this is beyond the scope of relevance.
Sustain.
Did you see Dr. Lee's testimony with respect to bloodstains found in the foyer of the Rockingham home?
Who is that?
And his examination of the carpet?
Sustain.
Did you see Dr. Lee's testimony with respect to wet transfers on the sock?
Objection, Your Honor, beyond
Sustain.
the scope.
Was the sock, is socks an area of your expertise?
With regard to what examination?
Blood?
Sustain. This goes way beyond the scope, counsel.
Well, are you confident that you actually saw 95% of Dr. Lee's testimony?
With regard to the,
Objection, asked and answered.
with regard to the shoe impression evidence, yes.
Oh, so if I understand your testimony now, what you're saying is that you saw 95% of Dr. Lee's testimony with respect to shoe impressions, but not necessarily with respect to all of what he testified to.
On the East Coast, the coverage of his testimony was limited to part of his testimony. There was time when they cut it off. And all during the testimony, they would go to breaks and commercials about every 10 minutes, which would mean any time there would be a segment of that, I wouldn't see it. I had no way of seeing it. So that's why I've sometimes remember things and sometimes don't. And I have no control over that.
I hate to make this my last question. Do you have Court TV?
No.
Ms. Clark.
Very briefly, thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sir, you indicated at one point that when you look at a shoe
No, I
print, you
didn't.
don't consider anything else. Can you explain that answer? I believe it was an answer you gave to Mr. Scheck on cross-examination when we broke on Friday.
Yeah, I think that was with regard to the envelope in specific, but in general, when we're looking at a shoe impression, very often there is other excess of blood which interferes or obscures that, or there may be other things which interfere with that
professional.
impression. If it's in soil, it may be leaves that have fallen in, or sticks or rocks that were in the bottom that prevent reproduction of that
I
shoe
went to
detail
school
at
for
that
this.
point. And of course, no one can examine things that are obscured or interfered with. So the examination would be limited to the part, in the case of the envelope, that was the parallel line pattern, and any other interferences or secondary or primary blood splatter, stain, or absorption on the envelope would be irrelevant. I would only examine what I could, the part of the pattern that I could see,
So you base your opinion on what you can see, not what you can't see.
of course.
Now, you indicated that you did not look in your database, in your computer database, for the parallel line imprints
changed my
that
phone
were
number.
found on the jeans, the envelope, the paper, correct?
That's correct.
And why is that?
The parallel line imprint, in my opinion, is not a shoe impression.
And if it's not a shoe impression, then will it be found in the database?
Well, there are a lot of shoes with parallel line imprints, and I'm sure some of them would become very close to spacing on those jeans, but it's the manner in which the imprint is made on the jean and the absence of characteristics that I, based on my experience, would expect to see in that many impressions. And because I don't believe it's a shoe print, I wouldn't search for something that I didn't believe existed.
And did Mr. Scheck show you imprints made by a shoe that did have parallel lines this morning?
Yes, he did.
And did he ask you for your opinion concerning whether or not those parallel lines bore any resemblance to the ones on the jeans, the paper, and the envelope?
It was limited to the ones on the envelope.
He asked you for your opinion, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
And what opinion did you give him?
I told him they were totally different. Upon looking at that, it's impressive because they're very, very fine parallel lines on the shoe print he showed me. When comparing it side by side, those on the envelope, they're still twice as big, which shows that it would be very, well, in my opinion, impossible to manufacture a mold that would implant that minute a design on a shoe.
So the shoe impression with parallel lines that he showed you, you indicated to him, were not at all similar to the parallel lines on the envelope in this case.
Only in the sense that they both ran parallel, but the size of the one that Mr. Scheck showed me was twice as big, twice as wide as the ones on the envelope.
Okay, and you had that conversation with him this morning before you took the witness stand, correct?
Yes, he asked me to look at it, and I obliged him.
Now, the identicator kit uses large-sized pieces of paper, is that right?
Yes, it does.
And the Xerox pieces of paper that you were shown by Mr. Scheck today of the test impressions taken by the jeans were 8.5 by 11?
I saw them on the screen here and briefly when he showed them, and they weren't as large as the identicator pieces, yes.
Now, are you aware, sir, that Agent Diedrich made his own test impressions of the jeans with the identicator?
Yes, because I furnished it to him.
And do you know how he made his test impressions of the jeans?
I wasn't present when he did that.
Do you know whether LAPD took impressions of the jeans in many different ways?
Again, I wasn't involved in that aspect of it. If Agent Diedrich had any information about that, I'm not aware of it.
Okay. That question is with that foundation.
No, he said he didn't know about it.
Well, but I object to the question being asked.
Do you have any information about the methods used by Agent Diedrich to make his test impressions of the jeans?
Do I have knowledge of how he did it?
Correct.
No.
Sir, would he be the appropriate person to ask about the way the test impressions of the fabric of these jeans were made?
With regard to
It's his opinion of another person's expertise.
With regard to the fabric impressions, Agent Diedrich would be the one that's qualified to know how known impressions should be taken and what is adequate or not adequate within the context of that examination.
So he would be the one to pose the questions to about whether the ribbing would have been spread out by rolling the impression or not, for
Yes, he
example.
would.
To your knowledge, was he ever asked such questions by Mr. Scheck?
Sustained.
Sir, if the test impressions of the jeans were made by merely pressing the paper on the jeans with your hand, would that make the space between the ribbings seem larger?
Again, I have not made all of these different types of fabric impressions because it's not my area with the identicator, only sock impressions that I use for a footwear-related type exam, so I wouldn't be able to answer that question. I haven't done a study or had experience in those different ways to know if there's a variation.
Agent Diedrich might know that, though.
Yes, he would.
Based on what experience you do have, sir, do you have any reason to believe that the rolling of impressions of the paper on top of the jeans would cause the ribbing to spread and appear more widely spaced?
Sustained. I sustained his objection to the same question.
She wants to open it up. I'll go into it.
No, we're not opening that up.
Okay.
We're going to finish.
Sir, do you have experience with cases where bloody shoe prints faded on just the day after they were made?
It's hard to answer that. I would say no because, I've seen impressions the day after they were made, but I don't go around comparing with a densitometer or something the exact fading of shoe impressions. I know they fade because I see that in my daily work, but I don't try to measure the amount of fade per day, so I wouldn't be able to tell that.
Well, have you seen impressions made in blood with shoes the day after they were made?
Yes.
Have you seen impressions made in blood with shoes a week after they were made?
Yes.
2 weeks?
Yes.
3 weeks?
Yes.
So your experience and your opinion rendered in this case about the fading of bloody shoe prints, is that based on cases in which you've seen impressions the day after as well as years after?
That's correct.
Now, you were asked a series of questions by counsel concerning the conditions under which Dr. Lee did his examination of the Bundy crime scene. Do you recall that, sir?
Yes.
Do you know whether it's true that Dr. Lee had a time limit when he made his investigation at the Bundy crime scene?
Under knowledge, based on
Do you have any
doctor's
idea?
testimony.
No, Your Honor.
Do you have any idea whether the defense ever asked to allow him into the Bundy crime scene again to complete his investigation?
Sustained.
Sir, you indicated, you were asked a question, read a portion of your book about doing careful investigation in order to make sure that all shoe prints are properly detected. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
What is your opinion of the shoe print investigation done by LAPD in this case?
With regard to the photography, they did an excellent job. It's almost hard to recall many other cases over the year where both color and black and white photographs with that type of clarity were taken, with that many exposures taken. The only thing that they might have done in addition would be to have sprayed a chemical enhancement on those impressions. They may have darkened up some of the lighter ones slightly. The surface was very light to begin with. You don't get the amount of contrast change when it's already a light surface because you have dark blood or blood color on a light surface. It might have helped a little. And if, in this case, we had a pair of shoes from the suspect where we were looking for minute detail from cuts or scratches or wear, then it might have been critical to enhance those impressions. But in this case, we didn't. We were only looking for shoe size and manufacture, and the darker impressions were more than adequate, and any lighter impressions would not have made any difference.
As a matter of common sense, sir, if you have a series of shoe prints in blood, will they tend to get lighter as they go on in location, as they get farther and farther?
Yes, one of the things we do for preparation of classes is to, as bad as it sounds, it has to be done, is to step in blood and take steps down a tile flooring, and with each we number them, and with each step, the track, of course, becomes lighter and lighter. Normally, the imprint starts breaking up around between 6 and 8 steps, and usually after it gets to about 10 to 12, it's all but disappeared, and that would vary with the surface, the weight of the person, and the amount of the blood. But they disappear, become lighter with each step as they go along.
Now, you said it varies with the surface. For example, on concrete, that's a hard surface, obviously, correct?
Yes.
Has it ever happened in your experience, sir, that shoe prints will fade out to the point where they're not detectable on concrete, but then appear on a softer surface that might mold into the shoe itself?
Oh,
Could you be more specific?
Yes. In this case, sir, with respect to these fading shoe prints, did you make an observation as to whether these shoe prints faded out at some point along the Bundy Walk?
Yes, they did.
And approximately how far along the Bundy Walk had they gotten by the time they faded out?
Well, when they got up to what I had labeled L, M, and O, they were starting to just become pretty much non-existent. There were a couple thereafter, particularly if they went, and that could vary just with the weight. You could go a step and step lighter and not leave anything, and then the next step, if you really came down heavy, you might have a little evidence of it, and there were a couple beyond that, but pretty much around L, M, and O, they started to lose their appearance.
And was that about halfway down the walk, sir?
Yes, it was.
And then did you see a piece of carpet on the driver's side of the Bronco in which there was...
sustained.
In that situation, sir, where concrete no longer picks up the details of a bloody shoe print, might you still find some transfer of blood from that shoe on a softer surface?
Sustained.
Does the non-enhancement of any of the shoe prints in this case have any effect on the reliability of your opinion that only one pair of shoes, the Bruno Magli size 12, was found on the walkway on June the 13th?
No, it does not.
Why not, sir?
If there were any other shoes that were at the scene, they would have left dark impressions, which became lighter and lighter as they also left the scene.
Now, sir, you were directed to testimony by Dr. Lee concerning the lines, parallel lines that you testified were actually not imprints but trowel marks. Do you recall that, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Putting up people's, I think it's 598.
All right, this is a heavy one.
Yes.
All right, let Mr. Wooden handle that.
I believe the photograph you were directed to by Mr. Scheck is on the Defense Board 1337. Now, Mr. Scheck read you testimony of Dr. Lee from August 23rd, Wednesday. I'm going to read you the testimony from August 22nd. Is that this?
You have a page in that.
My real time says 2:46 on it.
Why don't you just show it to Mr. Scheck?
Yes. Your Honor. I'd like to wrap it up.
Well, Ms. Clark, we're within a couple of minutes, but it ought to be the actual transcript, so that the reference to the record can be made.
We don't have these, so...
I have a green screen. It's huge. It goes almost the length of my bedroom.
Now, you were
And it's a
shown
real
15,
nice
37.
material. It's like
B,
silky.
correct? By Mr. Scheck? Recall this one?
Yes, I was.
And with respect to this imprint, sir,
I'm
there was
actually
an
going to
aspect
wash it.
of
Okay.
the imprints
I
shown, of
think
the,
I'm going to wash
lines
it,
shown
my
to you
green
here,
screen
that
today, and
you
hopefully I
determined
don't
was
ruin
made
it.
in concrete.
Do you want to know why? Because finally, first off, before I get into that, I have to say, oh no, you're back, you're not going to work. I was going to say hi to you while you were driving, Kelly. I had it all planned out. I was going to say hi to you while you were driving, and you were going to be driving down the road, and you were going to hear me say hi to you, and you were going to say, yay! And anyway, they did tear the first one. That was more like a cloth paper, if that makes any sense. It wasn't paper, but it wasn't fully cloth either. That one they destroyed. So I got a different one. And I think I'm gonna wash it today. Do you want to know why? I'll tell you why. Well, I'm glad you're at work. I halfway fixed my dryer yesterday. I finally did. I know it's been months. I got the big drum off of the belt. I got it off the pulley. I got it all out. I scrubbed down the drum real good. Because how often do you get to wash out your drum like that? So I was able to sweep out the dryer, inside the dryer. It's the motor is right there. I can see it clearly. But I ran out of time. Do you want to know why I ran out of time? The easiest part of the whole job, 3 tiny little spade connectors, kicked my tush. These things were welded on there. Okay, they weren't literally welded on there, but I could not get them off. Could not get them off. I'm not going to tell you how I finally got them off, because it's inappropriate to do to any kind of motor ever. But nothing was hurt, and thankfully the dryer was unplugged at the time, which helped a lot. And once I unplugged it, I went back 5 minutes later and made sure it was unplugged. And then I went back 5 minutes later and made sure it was unplugged. And then before I touched what I did to this poor motor to get the spade connectors off, I held the plug in my hand. And I said, this is definitely unplugged. But it took so long. Spade connectors, you don't screw them on. You just slide them on and slide them off. That's how easy it is. It's just... That's it. That's all you do with them. But they're tiny, and they were way down at the bottom, and they were under the motor, and there was spade connectors was just a little metal piece and then a wire. There was so much not room that the wire was it was coming out the side, and not normally like it does, just straight. So I did all that. I'm sure I did all that just like 2 months ago. So now I have the spade connectors and the wires unhooked, and just the motor sitting there left. So now I just have to get the old motor out. It's unhooked, and then put the new motor in, and then pray that I put it all back together again. So as soon as OJ's done, any minute now, I have other things I need to wash first. So I'm very enthusiastic about getting this done today, but probably won't. I probably won't. First thing, I've been buying new sheets and stuff. Like every week I just go buy a new sheet, because to air dry the sheets, they don't smell. They're not great, right? I couldn't pull. That was the problem, Josh. Could not pull. I could not get them off. I could not. I had to use special tools. And pray, you mean pry. With sharp, tiny objects. But yeah, I have so much to do today. I'm so excited to do it too. I really am. So that's what I'm going to be doing after I get my video out. I have to get a video out. I have a lot to do. Yeah, it was a crowbar. It was a crowbar for a tiny little piece that just slides. It was a nuclear option I went, because I got mad. Pretty mad. I got pretty frustrated because it was such an easy task and I could not accomplish it. And I know it was an easy task. But no, they weren't budging. So I solutionized it in the most nuclear way possible, but it worked. And nothing broke. Except my feelings, my self-esteem a little bit.
That's correct.
And could you point that out to the jury, please?
Yes, this is the wavy lines up between the ruler and the obvious heel mark.
And do you recall Dr. Lee's testimony, sir, discussing that particular set of lines as an imprint?
Yes.
In your opinion, sir, is it misleading to discuss something as an imprint that is made in concrete?
Well, if I could explain.
Yes.
The only thing misleading is, as I perceive the discussion, in some context, Dr. Lee, and this is over his testimony, was pointing to things that...
Generally, and is not responsive, should be directed towards
Ask
the
a
specific
specific question.
testimony.
Let me ask you this, sir. Do you recall that on one day of his testimony, August 22nd, on Tuesday, Dr. Lee referred to a photograph taken and shown on the far left as you face the photograph entitled Walkway 612, referred to lines in that tile as possible imprint?
Yes.
And do you recall that he did not correct or qualify that conclusion until he returned to court the next day, August 23rd?
I believe it was the next day, yes.
And in your opinion, sir, and then at that point he qualified it as being possibly the result of a trowel mark in the tile, correct?
Yes.
But until that next day, he left the jury with the impression that that might be an imprint.
Sustained.
And your opinion is, sir, with respect to the lines on that tile, is it a possible trowel mark or a possible imprint?
No, it's positively a trowel mark.
And you have no doubt about that?
There's no doubt about it. I've felt it with my bare hands and photographed it.
Sir, with respect to the parallel lines on the jeans and on the paper and envelope and on the walkway, are the parallel lines in those three areas, and I group the envelope and the paper together, then the jeans, and then the walkway.
Yes.
Are the parallel lines in those three areas similar to each other?
No.
Why not?
In differences of spacing and breadth of the lines and other features. Of course, on the biggest obvious difference is on the walkway, it's probably a shoe print. On the jeans and on the envelope on the paper, in my opinion, it's not even a shoe print, so that's the biggest difference. But if you were just to compare the features of the parallel lines, they are also different.
And is it important, in your opinion, to point that out to the jury, that there's a different mechanism for the imprint that was made on those three areas?
Yes, it is.
And why is that?
So they have a full and clear understanding of what caused those items or what features in those items were significant.
Now, you agreed with Mr. Scheck that you did not say 1337A and B, the lines that are outlined, that are circled by Dr. Lee, were in concrete.
That's correct.
They were not in concrete.
No.
And your testimony with respect to those impressions as to whether or not they were there on June the 13th at all was?
In my opinion, well, with regard to the parallel lines in the corner of the tile that we have very good photographs of, in my opinion, they absolutely were not there. With regard to the other shoe impression, my opinion is also they were not there, but for several reasons, not for just one, like a photograph.
Now, you indicated in response to Mr. Scheck's question that in a very loose sense you could look at it, if you were asked to, say that various imperfections in the tile could not be excluded as other footwear impressions. Do you recall that answer, sir,
No.
in the loose sense?
Misstates that was his testimony.
Yes,
Sustained. Actually, I'm sorry. Overruled. Last question, though.
it is. Do you recall that, your
I'm
answer?
sorry,
in
I
that
thought it
regard,
was
sir?
sustained. Could you restate it, please?
You gave an answer that in a very loose sense, you could look at it, and I believe you were referring to the walkway, if you were asked, or anyone, including Dr. Lee, to look at this and say, you know, various other imperfections in the tile that could not be excluded as possible footwear impressions. And you indicated, of course, you couldn't. Could you explain to us what you meant by in the very loose sense?
Yes, and looking at the overall photograph,
And referring you back to People's 598.
and looking
I
at the
don't know
overall
if it was the
photographs of the
beginning. I know
walkway,
it-
as
Yeah,
well as
yes.
the
This is the
various
beginning,
respective tiles
sorry.
that we have
Hold
with
on,
the
this is
close-ups, and
important.
looking at all of the evidence with regard to footwear impression evidence, you can see
Yeah, this is the beginning. I think this is the first major case that Court TV did. I think this was the beginning. I'm not 100% sure. Hold on. I'm going to press play and then try to find an answer. That's not play. That's just...
particularly on the overalls, many discolorations and different shadowing and marks. You can just take every tile and see something that's ununiform about it. But none of them, in my opinion, have any shape or are caused by shoe prints other than the bloody Bruno Mali prints to which I've testified and which are much clearer to see. So the fact that the tile has numerous trowel markings and miscolorations on it, that's basically what I see. I don't see any evidence from these photographs of other shoe impressions.
Thank you, and I have
in blood.
nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the noon hour. Please remember all my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, form any opinions about the case, conduct any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you, or allow anybody to communicate with you with regard to the case. We'll stand in recess until 1 o'clock. And let me see Ms. Clark and Mr. Cochran just for a moment.
Please clear the court.
They're again present. All right, Deputy Trier, let's have the jury. I'm sorry, Mr. Gelberg.
Just very quickly, Your Honor, Mr. Yockelson informed me that shortly before the noon hour he came down. I'm not sure if it was a direct communication with the court, but the response I got was...
It doesn't
he had
actually
requested
say
to
what they
allow
started
Mr.
with.
Marks the opportunity
Just
to review
general
the transcript of the interview with Dr. Whitehurst
state
in order
criminal
that we
trials,
may
civil
ascertain
cases,
his views and the
sentencings, but
allegations that are made.
no
The allegations, just for the most
trials
part, do not
that they
directly
started
pertain
with.
to anything Mr. Marks did in the Simpson case. They deal with other allegations, and that not to allow Mr. Marks the opportunity to review what these allegations are and to give us his perspective on these allegations obviously is, in our judgment, quite unfair, for we have no idea of how much of a mini-trial there would have to be regarding the allegations. Separate and apart from that, as the court is probably...
So the bottom line is you're asking for the opportunity to make an additional copy of the transcript.
And submit it directly to Mr. Marks for him to be able to comment upon it to me.
Well, we object. We intend to use that for impeachment, and there are specific things about this case that's just not accurate. There was a lot of discussion about this case, and there are memos about this case, so we will be cross-examining or asking further questions of Agent Marks about his truthfulness in this case.
Your Honor, I don't think that's an accurate characterization, but whether or not I'm correct on the percentage or Mr. Blazier is, this is the equivalent, in essence, of an expert's report, Dr. Whitehurst's report, and I
All right, is the
don't
matter
know what...
submitted?
Yes,
Granted.
thank you, Your Honor.
Restricted to one copy.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, Deputy Trier, let's have the jurors, please.
Filing a motion for request for judicial notice that we're going to ask the court to give before we conclude today. And so at the conclusion of Mr. Boziak's testimony, other than
I
that...
hadn't given waxing and waning yet either.
No, I know.
I know, okay.
So we have some more to add to that. We're filing with the court now. Defense will get a copy. Before we conclude today, we need to be heard on that so that we can wrap it up.
All right, what's the nature of the request for judicial notice?
There will be a request to have the court take judicial notice. This is pursuant to Henry Lee's testimony, Your Honor, that the defense never sought a court order for inspection of the socks between November 22nd, on the date they were returned from DOJ, and February 16th, the date that they actually did inspect it. They never sought a court order for inspection of the Bronco or complained to this court about the sufficiency of their access to the Bronco. They never sought a court order for inspection of the Bundy crime scene
All
or
right,
complained...
I got the flavor. Seated. And Mr. Boziak, would you resume the witness stand, please? All right, good afternoon again, Mr. Boziak.
Good afternoon.
All right, Ms. Clark, have you concluded your redirect examination? Ms. Clark?
I'm sorry, yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Completed redirect.
Mr. Scheck?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Just a few questions, Agent Boziak. Ms. Clark asked you on redirect examination about she asked you, can anyone examine what's obscured? Do you recall that?
Yes.
And she asked you if you based your opinion about the parallel line imprints on what you could see and not on what you couldn't see.
That's correct.
And you said yes.
Yes.
Now, was not part of your opinion concerning the parallel line imprint evidence on the envelope and the piece of paper based on the fact that you did not see a border?
That's one part of it, yes.
Well, that's something that you did not see, correct?
The fact that I did not see it is the whole point, sir.
Well, you said just a second ago you based your opinion based on what you could see, not on what you can't see. Didn't
Absence of characteristics is the significance here.
Now, would you not agree that there are blood stain impressions over the parallel line imprint on the piece of paper?
Yes, there are.
And Mr. Reshek, you're making reference to a particular exhibit that's before the jury.
1338.
Right, making reference to the upper left-hand photograph.
And there are also blood stain impressions over the area of the parallel line imprint on the envelope.
Yes, I'm well aware of that.
And with respect now to, you gave a testimony on redirect examination that you based your conclusion that the imprints on the jean did not come from shoes based on the manner in which the imprints appeared on the shoes.
I'm not
On
sure.
the jeans, I'm sorry.
No, it's based on several things.
You don't recall that question on redirect?
I don't recall the exact quote. My answer is it's based on many things. If you asked me, was it in part based on that, I would have said yes.
Okay. Now, you indicated on redirect examination that the use of the identicator kit to make test impressions and to draw conclusions about imprints on the jeans from fabric was Agent Diedrich's area.
With regard to the fabric impressions, yes.
And you would rely on his expertise in conducting that examination.
He would do it independently. I wouldn't rely on it. He doesn't come back to me and report to me, and then that is a basis for my opinion. He does that independently and reports that independently.
But I think that Ms. Clark's question to you on redirect examination, that's not your area, that's his area.
That's correct.
And are you aware that Agent Diedrich testified that as far as he could remember, he had never done such an analysis before of bloody imprints on fabrics?
Sustain. Phrase the question.
Are you aware of what Agent Diedrich said about the amount of experience he had in terms of doing analysis of bloody imprints, fabric on fabric?
Oral.
I did hear that part of his testimony, yes.
Okay. Now, on redirect examination, you complimented the Los Angeles Police Department, saying that they had done an excellent job photographing imprints at the crime scene
That's correct.
because they made both color and black and white.
And the manner in which they took them and the quality of the subsequent photographs that they developed.
But, Agent Bodziak, in your book, you emphasize, before beginning the crime scene search, careful thought should be given to what occurred at the crime scene, how footwear impression evidence could contribute to the proof of fact, and what areas of the crime scene might contain impression evidence. Then footwear impressions should be looked for aggressively and carefully. What is not looked for will not be found. You agree with that?
Oral.
You agree with that?
Absolutely.
Now, based on, have you reviewed the testimony of Dennis Fung, Andrea Mazzola, Detective Lang, as to how the Bundy crime scene was processed?
Objection beyond the scope.
Oral.
I have some knowledge of that, yes.
Do you feel that you're in a position to say that they did an excellent job in giving thought, before they began the crime scene search, to what could have occurred and how footprint impression evidence could contribute to the proof of fact, and aggressively searching out footwear impressions?
Yeah, they knew what the crime was. It was quite obvious. They could see bloody shoe prints leading from an area which was almost totally covered in blood. They, as far as I remember from their testimonies, looked for other evidence of shoe marks, and they did their best to preserve it. And they ordered that it be photographed and recorded, which it was. As to anything else that went through their minds that they didn't state, I wouldn't be able to testify to that. But from what I heard, that's exactly what they did. They made a point of looking for footwear impressions. There were those that were obvious, and they also looked all the way down the walkway, documented them all the way to the end in the back of the residence, and photographed everything that they could see.
Agent
Yeah,
Bodziak.
right, Amy. Don't. You leave. Agent Boziak alone. Oof. Oh, no. Oh, no. Jumping out of nowhere, Josh. When I was like eight maybe, and my older sister Janet, she was like 10, and my younger sister Patty, she was like 6. Okay. My parents decided to drive to California for a bowling tournament and drive back. All right. Now this was back, you know, in the late 70s. Maybe 1981 would be like as far as I'll go. So they didn't take the kids with them. Me, Patty, and Janet just stayed home while they were gone for weeks. They were gone for a couple weeks because they drove to California from Pennsylvania, and then they drove back. Okay. So, you know, we're just home, running around, doing whatever we want. So I come inside I was outside playing because that's what kids did back then. All right. We went outside and we played. That's what we did. When you walk into my living room, there's like this archway that goes into the dining room. So there's 2 like little small walls that come out. On the left wall is a hutch full of, you know, wine glasses and, you know what I mean, like crystal or whatever. This was back in the 70s, 80s, whatever. Definitely a lot of beer steins. My dad was a huge collector of beer steins until this day, until the day I'm talking about. So the hutch was there, and it was a big hutch, and it had 2 parts, you know, the bottom part, and then the glass part was on top. So I walk in from outside, and standing behind the other side was Daryl Rainier. He was a neighborhood kid, all right? Well, he had hidden in my house. I didn't know this. I was just a little girl. And back then, neighborhood kids, they come and go from houses all the time. That's not anything weird or creepy or bad or anything, all right? He was just in my house. Maybe he was thirsty. Maybe he had to go to the bathroom. I don't know. That's what kids did. They just wandered around and ate and drank from different houses. That's what we did back then. So I walk in. He jumps out at me, scares me so bad that I would go backwards into the hutch, and the whole hutch falls down, breaks everything in it. But my ribs were fine. See that? See, Josh, when you're gonna get jump scared, break something else, not you. Well, my butt was definitely broken with a belt when they got home from California. I got beat down. It's not like I tried it. It's not like I was climbing on the kitchen table and fell off. No, someone scared me, and I bumped into it very hardly. My dad's poor beer steins. Bye. You can't have nothing when you have kids. You can't have nothing good. Never. Never. Be allowed to drink from the water hose? We wanted to. The water hose tasted amazing. When it was hot outside, that water was so good. What? This was way before the OJ trial, though. This was way before then. I don't even think in OJ's time, in this time right here, in 95, I don't think a parent would let 3 kids at home alone and leave for a couple weeks. I don't think that would happen. Seriously, when we were little, it wasn't a joke. The commercials came on. Do you know where your kids are? Because parents had to be reminded to find us, put us in bed or something. It's true. It's just true. When I got up from bed in the morning, my mom would say, "Get out, just get out. Don't come back in." And I didn't go back in the house, not until the street light came on. Then it was dinner. Yep, we had a sprinkler. We had a slip and slide too. That was fun. And in the winter we were outside. We weren't inside in the winter. We were outside. Go outside. Put your coat on and get outside. I don't know how many. I had so many pairs of snowsuits. I had so many snowsuits. Hi, Bryden. Yes, so much freedom. Nothing but freedom. It's like if you would go inside, your mom was like, what? What do you want? I'm fixing my Avon catalogs right now. Please go outside. Now for me, with my kids, and I needed a break, it was the same thing. Go watch TV. Go watch TV. Go watch TV. Mom, can we go outside? No, go watch TV. Because when my kids, when they came, you couldn't just send your kids outside. If they went outside, you had to go with them, which was insane to me. That I would have to go outside with my kids. I did my time outside. I did my time. You know, I'm out on parole. I don't need to go outside again. But, oh my gosh. Yeah, because people leave them in there to bake. Like, you couldn't just lock kids, hi Amy, in the car in the 70s. They just got out. So, sometimes when the car was moving, because, you know, there was no such thing as seatbelts. They were there in the back seat, the seatbelts. I don't know if they were there in the front seat. I really don't. I do remember not wearing seatbelts when I was a kid, not because I was told many times in school, because they were just lap belts. They weren't like shoulder straps in the back seat. I was told in school, if you wore a seatbelt and you got in a car accident, that seatbelt would cut your body right in half. I believed them. It sounded logical to me. So there was no way I was going to put a seatbelt on. I don't want to get cut in half. You know? So, and then the cars were built different back then. Like kids would be crawling up, laying on the back dashboard and laying on the floor. And then there were the station wagons where everybody just sat in the back. And then there was the pickup trucks where everybody just sat in the pickup truck and left. I never had a reminder that my kids were in the back seat because their mouths were the reminder. Well, I was a kid back then. I believed it. Why wouldn't you believe it? You know? Yep, rear facing seats. I'm racking my head trying to remember if the front seat in my Impala, my dad's Impala, had a seatbelts. I want to say yes, but I don't know. I'm not going to go with fully yes because I just don't know. I remember we were babysitting a girl and my dad started driving and I think she was in the back seat and she was like 4 or 5 and she was the last one to get in. And I guess she didn't shut the door the whole way because she was like 4 or 5. And we're on this main street and my dad turns left and that door flies open and out she flies. She flew out of the car while we were driving. So he stopped the car and he threw her back in the back seat and shut the door and then we kept going to wherever we were going to. But I can't remember if there were seatbelts in that car. Maybe I'll just Google it later and look around and see if something's telling me there were no seatbelts in the front seat. But that just might be me remembering that no one ever touched them. Because mostly they were too freaking hot. It'll burn your finger. Alright, I think I'm dragging this out because I don't want to fix my dryer. Yeah. No one wore seatbelts. I was carried home from the hospital. In the car. I was carried home. My mom would put me on the floor in the back seat. Well, she didn't want to hold me. As a baby, she would just put me on the floor in the back seat. And I was fine. I slept in a dresser drawer. I was fine. There was nothing wrong with that. And then my kids come along, and my daughter, at like 2, climbs up the dresser. There's one of those big TVs on top, and the whole thing falls over. She's lucky that TV didn't fall right on her tiny little head. I slept in a dresser, never fell over. Things are built different now. They're built so that people get hurt. Because even back then, I think cars, you could bump into each other and it's not a big deal. The bumpers were there for a reason. No, you fix it. Hold on. I need to wash this. I want to wash this. It'll make me feel good. All right. Guys, thank you for coming out for OJ. I appreciate it. I really do. I shall see you again tomorrow morning. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye, guys.